Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist mixes indie pop with rock in a way that will grasp your full attention. Performing for over a decade all over the world, she has clearly made her mark. With a recent release of her sophomore EP, she is moving at full speed ahead. Welcome, Ellie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked.
I always like to kind of start off to get a little bit of background on where your journey with music kind of all started.
Yeah, I got really lucky. My dad's side of the family is like all musical. He's one of 10 kids and they like all played instruments. So I grew up with a lot of like live music around me. And a lot of like really good influences from my mom and dad. They like love listening to the classics. So I grew up with a pretty hearty background listening wise, but I just always loved to perform. And I started, the first song I ever wrote, I was like 3. I wrote a song about sandwiches and I kind of caught the bug. So it's been a wild ride since then. I kind of took a break and started doing a lot of musical theater, that kind of performance. But then I started doing open mic nights when I was 14, which was at the time like the scariest thing imaginable, especially with original music. So I think it felt like kind of putting myself on a chopping block a little bit. But everyone was super nice. And I just started kind of going more and more. And through that, realized that I loved performing my own music and kind of putting set lists together, gigging as much as possible. So I did that all through high school and then ended up going to Berklee College of Music in Boston, pursued that, got a degree in songwriting. And I've just been kind of performing wherever I can ever since then.
That's awesome. At what point along, I mean, maybe it was in the midst of the open mic nights, but at what point was it like, I'm writing these songs, I'm testing the waters on what it's like performing them, to being like, okay, this is like what I am meant to be doing for a living? Like, when did you kind of commit to doing the artist thing?
Oh, I think when I actually like sat down with myself and was like, this is a difficult industry to be in, but like this is what I'm meant to be doing. I think I was probably like 18, 17 or 18 because I loved performing at open mic nights and doing gigs, but I was also, like a high school student, so I was busy all the time and dealt with a lot of stage fright. So I think it was more like I wanted to write these songs just to write them and get them out. I didn't really think about like doing it seriously until I was 17, 18 and uh I got into Berklee, but couldn't afford to go that first year. It's like one of those very expensive private schools. So I was like, okay, this is not plausible right now. And I spent a semester at another school, which was a great experience, but the music department like wasn't what I was looking for. So I had to like sit down and think, well, how much am I willing to like invest in this? Because the more I was like away from it, the more I realized like I miss it and this is what I should be doing. So, I was really lucky to have a lot of support from my family and friends and teachers that were like, we think that you should just kind of, throw no holds barred, throw it in the wind, go to Berklee and do what you have to do to get there. And I'm like always grateful that I did that because it was worth it. But I think that was the moment that I sat down and was like, it's time to really take this seriously. This is a huge jump, but worth it.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those kind of situations where it's like sometimes it really does come down to a tight sort of situation where you're like
Yes.
kind of forced to make that choice. But I mean, obviously, it kind of sent you in the right direction and it made you realize like I mean, it really is, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And then you like
Exactly.
realize that's what you needed. And so then the rest is
Exactly.
history.
I had a professor at Berklee who she was like my mentor, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said that if you spend too much time like trying to create a safety net for yourself and a plan B, then you're not going to reach your plan A. So that kind of stuck with me. I was like, okay, if I'm really serious about this, I have to kind of give it my all right now, or I'll regret it later. But I'm still in the midst of it and loving it. It was definitely the right advice.
No, and sometimes a plan B is like too much to fall back on. Like you kind of sometimes
Yeah,
need that push to really go after plan A, as crazy as plan A might be.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but like I feel like anybody that pursues music like this, like it's worth it. It's worth it. It's exciting, it's scary, but it's all worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think often inspires a lot of your songwriting?
Ooh, that's a good one because it's feels like a cop out answer, but it really is different for each song. I started off writing about like experiences that I was having. I don't know how angsty a 14-year-old can be, but I wrote a lot of songs about heartbreak and all of this disappointment and stuff. So looking back on those songs, it's really funny. I'm like, how difficult could it have been at 14?
Right.
But since then I write a lot about oops, sorry. I since then I write a lot about experiences that I've had, especially this last EP focused a lot on like mental health. So there's a song on there about anxiety and a song about depression and stuff. So writing about mental health in a way that was like started off being really cathartic for me, and I felt like I needed to write the song for me to get it out there. But then as soon as I started performing it in front of audiences, it kind of like became for the audience and not for me anymore. Which is a good thing because I think I was inspired a lot by people coming up to me during shows and telling me like, I've had this exact feeling too. I just didn't know how to put words to it. So that's been really validating. So I think a lot of my inspiration comes from other people, but a lot of it comes from myself and experiences that I know are like universal. So the audience can relate to that.
No, and I mean, it just kind of, a lot of people write about their own kind of personal experience. And the thing is about that is like, you might be telling your own story, but the human experience translates across everybody. Like, I mean, not, you can't guarantee every single person's going to understand exactly what you're writing about, but there is a
Right.
large amount of people that are going to understand exactly what every word of that song means.
Yeah, exactly. I always say when I perform some of those songs live, like, this, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but like a lot of people relate to this song. So, like, if you do relate to it, I'm super sorry because this is a song about dealing with some tough stuff. But, I think it makes people feel a lot better to know that there's like a community around them, or at least like even if one other person understands what they're going through. So, that's been like really, really validating.
Yeah, I mean, as shitty as it sounds, misery does enjoy company.
It does. Yep, you could not be more correct about that.
No, but I mean, it is one of those where it's a catch 22 where it's like, cool, people like relate to what I'm saying, but it's also like, ooh, like it sucked for me, it
Sorry.
probably sucks for them too.
Like, I'm glad that you're finding something in my music to relate to, but
Yeah.
also like so sorry.
Yeah, like,
It's tough.
yeah, you don't have to tell me, it's I get
Yeah.
it. If you kind of had to create a new genre or style, like name, I guess, around your kind of music, do you know what you'd call it?
Ooh, that's difficult. I feel like this is a hard question for a lot of artists is like, what genre are you? Um, I don't know. I feel like if there was any way to if there was a genre between indie pop and indie rock, I feel like that's where I would want to sit. Because
Right in
I
the middle.
love a lot of, yeah, right in the middle. I love a lot of like alternative pop, like Maggie Rogers, Muna, Haim. Like, I love that kind of music. But then I also was inspired a lot growing up by like indie rock. So I think that if there was a sweet spot right in the middle, that's where I'd want to hang out all the time.
So indie pop rock almost.
Indie pop rock. You know what? I think that's the answer right there. Indie pop rock.
Is there a release or a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? Like if you had one song to kind of sell someone on being the next Ellie James fan, what song are we showing them?
I think better.
Why?
Yeah. It's the first song that I wrote off of this EP. I wrote better with no plan of making another EP right away. I wrote it like right after I graduated, and a lot of it was like I was feeling a ton of anxiety about like not being a student anymore. We spend most of our young adult lives and young teenage lives being students, and so the like terror that comes with, well, if that was a huge part of my identity and I like don't really know where to go after this, or if I'm going to be okay, or if I'm going to be able to do all the things I want to do. So I wrote this song about dealing with that kind of anxiety and the frustration that I think goes along with anxiety, like being really frustrated with yourself. So I think I would show them that because it came from a really really real place. I like to think all my songs do, but that one especially, I felt like needed to come out of me somehow, and I think that it kind of sparked this inspiration of like having a new EP. I just thought that would be like, that's the next step, the natural next step, because I want this song out there and I want it to be part of something, part of a project. So I think that that one is like kind of embodies my style pretty perfectly. It's also, you know, talking about some of the harder things or darker things, but presented like super fun, upbeat pop. I had somebody come up to me the other day and was like, I've been listening to your music for a long time since I saw you live, but I just kind of realized that the lyrics are sad. Like the music is so happy and poppy, but then I sat down and read the words and was like, oh damn, this is this is a little darker than I thought it was. So I think that's like the marriage that I'm really happy with, is like talking about serious stuff while still keeping it like listenable and danceable, because I want it to be like a cheerleader song, like dealing, like voicing frustration about anxiety, but also like you're not alone. I'm rooting for you. So that would be the song I'd want to show people that kind of like I think encapsulates where I am as an artist right now.
So we're really just disguising sadness in these upbeat production styles.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, we're masking it. We're masking it.
That's what's tricky about a lot of pop anymore. Is like sometimes you like read the words and I'm like, this is not the upbeat happy sound that it seems like it
No.
has.
Sometimes you just need to yell along to like a really, really up pop song.
I
Like get your
guess.
frustrations out. I love songs like that.
Yeah. Well, here is a snippet of Better.
I think too much, harboring things with such emotion. Feel like I'm joking. Can't help but wonder why I've gone down this road instead of chosen. I think I'm broken. The lights are on, I'm not home. I'm busy dying in monochrome. Know too well things would be better, better if I could tell myself I'd never get stuck again on all these useless things. I would be better. Wish I was better.
So, what was it about Better that like sparked not just, I mean, obviously, like you said, you wanted to put it out, but what made you think this needs to be a part of like a bigger project? Was it like you wanted to write more about that same kind of thing? Was it like it made you want to write more and then just have it all come out? Like what was it about writing this that turned it into what became your EP?
Yeah, I think I wrote this like 2 years before I even started working on an EP, and I was performing it live a lot and had a lot of people keep coming up to me and asking, you know, when will this be out? When will it be released? Because we want to listen to it. And I didn't really have a plan. I knew that I wanted it to be recorded and released, but I wanted it to be something I was happy with. I think like a lot of artists, I'm a major perfectionist, especially when it comes to my own music. So I was worried that I wouldn't be able to like find a way to do it the way that I wanted to do it and have it be at the quality I wanted it at. And I found this recording studio in Boston called Plaid Dog, and they sort of talked about, you know, we'll help you crowdfund and raise money for an EP or an album, whatever you want to do. So I saw that and was like, you know, at the very least, I would love to get better recorded professionally and be able to release it. But also, like, I think if I have four other songs that are written, ready to go, why not just shoot for a whole EP? So that ended up being what happened. And then COVID hit like pretty much immediately. So we were doing all of this crowdfunding over like through the pandemic, which was super weird. Recorded the song remotely. So I was here in California and my engineer was in Boston. So we did all of that through Zoom, and, you know, using recording equipment that they had shipped here. And that kind of like nailed it in where I was like, okay, well, if I'm already putting this much work and this much thought into this song. I want to at least get 4 more songs out of this and make it a whole new representation of my sound, because I think I've evolved a lot as a producer and a songwriter in the past few years. So I wanted something that kind of showcased the new sound, the new direction.
I mean, that remote music is a whole challenge in itself, but that's the world we've been living in for a few years now.
Yeah,
but
no
that's
kidding.
So I've always kind of wondered this because the number game is a big thing for me. What made, like, was it when you wrote Better, when you were at this point and you wanted to turn it into a project, what made you choose 5 songs? Like, why, like, was it like something like, was it you wanted to write 3 more and then it was 4 and then just another one happened? Like, was it like, no, it's got to be 5 songs? Because I'm very like, no, it's got to be like 10 songs or 6 songs or something like that. Like, where was the numbers game in that?
I'm the same way, where I was like, I just knew that, like, an EP, I knew that I wasn't in a place where I wanted to write an entire album. And for me, like, a whole album is like 10 songs or more. So I knew I wasn't like ready for that yet, but I knew that I wanted to do more than one. And I mean, this is like kind of a stupid answer, because I wish that it was like way more deep than this, but I was like, what's the length of a lot of the EPs that I listened to? It was 5 songs. So I was like, cool, we'll shoot for 5 songs. So I started raising money and like working on this project without even like knowing which songs I wanted on the EP. I just knew I wanted 5.
I mean, I'm the same way. I have an album in the works and I'm like, okay, 12 songs. And I'm like, wait, I kind of want to cut this one. And I'm like, it can't be 11. I either have to write another one or I have to cut another one. That's it. Like, it's gone from 10 to 12 a few different times, but it's never going to be 11. It just has to be even. I don't know what it is, but it's just,
I get it.
It's like, for me, EPs were always 4. I've done 2 that were 4. I can't for 5. I can't do the odd number thing, like a 7 songs or 9 songs. I'm like, just make it 10 or 8. Like, come on.
I'll make sure that whatever I do next is an even number of songs.
I appreciate that. I'll remember that.
Hold me to it.
Yeah. I mean, 5 I can reason with, because it's like, like people are always like, it's evens or it's in 5. So it's like 5 or 10 or 15, but it's like, if we do like 11 or 9, it's like, come on, like, the 10 is right there. Just do 10. Just do 10. Okay. Rant over.
No,
Proceeding
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 artists that you think your music is kind of a combination of, who would you choose?
Ooh, that's a great question. As someone who produces their own music, I feel like I listen to a lot of different artists to try and get like references for like what I want to do or try. And one of the bands that I really listened to a lot while coming up with this new EP was Muna. They just released an album last year. I think that was incredible. So I would say I aim for a lot of things that Muna tries to accomplish with their production. I also love Haim. I love the girl groups. I think they're so awesome, and I think that they do a really good job of weaving in more rock elements to pop music, which I think is super cool. And then my queen is Kimbra. I just think she's amazing. I didn't know who she was until that Gautier song that came out like 10 years ago. And I loved her voice, so I went and checked out her solo stuff and found out that she has these amazing albums, and she produces a lot of her own music. And I've seen her do like loop pedals and vocoders with her live performances, and I just was like consistently blown away. So I would say that like Kimbra is what I'm shooting for. I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if that's who I sound like yet, but that's what I'm aiming for with like whatever comes next. I just think it's so cool to be able to produce your own music and then perform it exactly the way you want to. I think it's really empowering. So all 3 of those artists I love.
Yeah, that's what sometimes gets tricky about like pop music anymore, where we're not in the era of what you hear is what you're going to hear live anymore as much, because it's like there's so much with synths and different sort of like effects and editing and whatnot and all these crazy production things that just kind of, I mean, you could obviously spend hours and hours trying to figure out how to replicate it live, but like at the same time, it's like that's probably not going to be the same experience that you then have live. So it's just like, it's an interesting kind of balance. So being able to find ways that you can kind of carry that over from the original to the live is like pretty cool and kind of will set
Yeah.
you apart.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I love watching people, especially like artists that I love, kind of pull elements from their production and then play all of the real instruments. So that's something else I try and do, is like incorporate a lot of real instruments into my production, because then now that I have a full band now, I have people to play those like bass parts, electric guitar parts, drums, but then I can also pull some of the like synth elements, and it always sounds different than it does on the record itself, but I just think it's like so cool, and the way that people get super creative with all of these different like live production techniques, I'm just blown away by it. I want to learn how to do it all.
Oh yeah,
Not
it's
enough
a
time in
whole
the day, but
no, not enough days in the year, if we're being
oh my
completely
gosh.
honest.
Yeah.
There's nowhere like no.
Oh, I
2023
wish
is
I
already
had.
going by too fast. I can't.
Oh my god. I wish there was an extra hour in each day to just go on YouTube and watch tutorials.
I wish I had an extra hour a day to do just anything.
Sleep too.
Yeah. That
I
might
would
be a
not mind
start.
that. Yeah, I think sleep is the baseline of what I would use that extra hour for.
It's probably
I
what
like
I
to think
should
I'd
use
be
it for.
productive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No.
like to think I'm productive until I get into bed, and then I'm like, no, never mind.
Productivity just canceled the
Zero, back down.
second the mattress is hit. So, what, if any, is an outside passion of yours that you think impacts who you are as an artist?
Ooh, I think, I don't know if this like counts as a hobby, but it's definitely like an outside interest, like you said, is psychology. So
Okay.
I minored in psychology in college, and I think that I didn't even notice that I like was interested in that until high school, but it was the only other thing that I felt passionate about. Like especially like learning. I'm not like a textbook learner as much, but something about psychology I was like actually interested in doing work and assignments and research and stuff. So I think that like that was kind of, it was a sort of plan B, but more so just an interest, a passion. And I tell people that I minored in it, but got my major. I majored in songwriting, and everyone kind of laughs. And it's true that it's goes hand in hand really well. It's both like both are fields of like trying to understand people and kind of make meaning out of things. So I think that it's definitely helped. I always laugh. It's kind of like when bartenders major in psychology, and I'm like, you picked such a good job for it, because you know people will show up, tell you their problems, and then you just listen. It's the same thing as
Yeah.
therapy, but cheaper.
No,
But,
absolutely.
yeah, so
No,
I think it helped a lot.
yeah, there are definitely aspects of that. Especially like if you're writing songs about like anxiety and stuff like that, like there's definitely play in there.
Yeah.
But it's never like, I feel like psychology, no matter what you do, is not a bad kind of like skill
Oh yeah,
set or like knowledge to have, just
definitely.
because people like everything in some way, shape, or form is like a being in the people business, you know? So
Exactly.
it's a key piece to the puzzle for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like psychology and songwriting both are all about like digging deeper into somebody, whether it's yourself or another person. So I think that's like, I think it's interesting, those kind, that overlap of like trying to understand people and yeah, make meaning out of it, make something out of it. I think it helps with relating to people too, for sure.
No, absolutely. Um, if you had to kind of set the scene, what's the ideal listening scenario for someone to listen to your music?
Ooh. I would love somebody to listen to put my music on at like a slumber party. This is so weird, but like I love everything about slumber parties, sleepovers. And I just kind of like when especially with Back to Life, which was like a bunch of cheerleaders, like with the yells and the chorus and stuff, was like I wanted it to feel like cheerleaders. And so I kind of picture like people just yelling that and like dancing around in their room. I just think that'd be so fun. It's so dorky, but like that's kind of the best, I think the best way to listen to my music. Or
No,
if you're angry, God, people tell me they listen to Godson when they're pissed off, especially at like a partner and they yell the "I don't kiss my friends like that" line is like, I've had so many people reach out and be like, I love the EP, but like this part specifically is what I yell when I'm in my car. And so I think that's the other perfect scenario is when you need to yell.
Oh my gosh.
When you need to yell to some upbeat pop music, Ellie will be there for you.
There we go. Or if you're at a slumber party, this is your
Or a
next slumber
slumber
party
party.
soundtrack for sure.
Exactly.
Slumber party soundtrack. That should be like your next project.
Oh, I would
Is
love that.
call
Do
it
the
slumber party soundtrack
and do like the
or
font,
soundtrack
like
to your
the
slumber party.
the Lisa Frank font. I want everything like a mid 2000s aesthetic and do slumber party soundtrack. That would be
Yes,
perfect.
that 2024, it's coming.
Yeah. Keep your eyes and ears out. Invite all your closest friends over.
What do you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
Ooh. Oh, that's a really, really good question. I think I don't know if this sets me apart from every independent artist because I know other indie artists that do this, but I'm like indie to the core in terms of like I do like really everything myself. I've been really lucky to have support from other people. So like my mom has helped me with like merchandise for this new release, and I could not have done that without her. I had to like plan a whole release show and a bunch of events and this big concert, and my mom helped me with merch and everything, and my dad helps me like set up at gigs. He's like the best roadie ever, and I'm really lucky to have parents that support me. But in terms of like everything else, like songwriting, production, the business aspect is like really intense to do all at once. You feel like you're doing like 17 different jobs. But I do it all myself. I don't have a team. I'm hoping that eventually becomes something that changes because I love it right now, and I think that it's helped me get a way better understanding of the industry and what goes into all of these jobs, like being your own booking agent and your own manager and negotiating your own contracts, stuff like that. So I'm really glad I have these skills and that I do it all myself right now because I have complete control over everything. But ultimately, I mean, especially like marketing and promotion, I would not mind having a team in the future, but I think that's something that, a lot of people don't do. They have experts to do that other stuff for them, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something that sets me apart is just doing it all. Truly a one woman show right now. But I just got a band though, so like hopefully I already feel like I have more backup now, which is awesome.
It's foreshadowing. We're just on the way up.
I hope so. And I love my band. They're amazing. So it's been nice to like collaborate with other people.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a big like there's something to be said for both sides of the coin when it comes to being independent. There's something to be said about doing it all yourself. Like it's very like, especially as someone who enjoys having that sort of creative control, you kind of have to do it that way, at least in the beginning, because you're very set in what you want. You want to make sure that everything is the way that you want it to be. But then there's also something to be said, like it is a lot to do, like, because I mean, if you think about it, these like big artists have people to at least a person, if not a team, to do each of these individual roles. So it's like trying to do it all yourself. Obviously, we're not doing it to the same capacity as someone like a Harry Styles or a Beyonce or an Ariana Grande type. Like we're not doing it even to like mid-levels necessarily, but like
exactly,
there's a reason that there are that many people working behind this one artist.
Exactly.
So
And it's
a
people
whole
who have like studied this, people who specifically study promotion and marketing and contract law and everything. So it's like these are people that really know what they're doing.
Yeah. For sure. What kind of impact do you want to have with your artistry and with your music?
I think one of the most important things to me is making sure that I'm still writing music that other people can relate to. I think that's been like really, really important. So I think a lot of the goal is to keep doing that. I think one of the most validating and important parts of my job is when people come up to me either after shows or after they've listened to the EP and tell me like, I was feeling this way, but I didn't really know how to put it to words or how to articulate this to somebody else, but it felt good hearing somebody else talk about it. So I would love for that to be a really positive impact with my music, is having people feel like they're not alone with what they're going through. And I think that artists, anybody who's in the arts, is in a very special position to be able to talk about a lot of really difficult things, because I think the social landscape has kind of changed. The cultural landscape has changed around talking about more difficult subjects and a lot of, shared experiences that a lot of people have gone through. So I think being able to put that into music has been a privilege and so special. And I hope I keep doing that. And on a more superficial note, I want to play festivals. I want you to have a good time when you're at my show. That's the other goal, is I want you to come to a show and leave with a lot of good memories of like, wow, I love seeing live music. That's important to me.
No, I mean, the live thing just kind of, it can either be what brings you in to like find that next person, or it can be just that like secondary, like, I love what I'm streaming, let's hear it right there in front of me. And it just adds to the experience. Like, we can go as digital as we want, but live music will never die. Not
No,
even like, I don't even think it'll
never.
even like get smaller or anything like that.
Yeah, I
Until
think
we're
it's
living in
gonna
an
keep going.
AI world where it's just everybody's a robot.
Yeah, we're all robots. We live
but
in the little bubbles.
yeah, absolutely not. No, thank you. No, not allowed as long as I'm here. So
Yeah, I will not be
I will not be
going robot.
partaking. No. I'd rather never see live music again than turn into an AI watching like this shit live. Absolutely
Right,
not.
exactly.
No.
Hopefully it'll never come to that
Oh
decision.
God, no. It might. It terrifies me. Like,
Oh my gosh.
but
Not
no.
not if those of us in the industry like you and me, if we have anything to say about it, it won't happen
No.
that way. There's something
not on my watch.
Yeah, not on my watch. There's something so
Exactly.
amazing about live music that I just think, like you said, like it'll never die. I think there's an experience that you can't get through a computer screen, like being just also as an artist, like I love when I go and see people perform and like singing along with songs that I know, and getting to see these songs that I've been listening to by this artist and then hear them do it differently live is so exciting. And then the other side of that coin, like being a performer, I feel like we also get this huge validation and like have such a good time up there with the audience. So it's fun for, as long as it's fun for both parties, I think that's what makes a good show. I had somebody come to a show a couple weeks ago that knew they were about to leave. I was on my last song and they were about to head out the door, and I started singing Back to Life, and they popped their head back in and came right to the front row and knew every word. And they were like, I'm so glad that you played that. I didn't know if you were going to, but it's my favorite song. They knew the words better than I did. And it was like the most incredible feeling. Like it was so humbling to be like, oh my gosh, like something I made, somebody loves this much, and it feels so good and kind of reminds us why we love performing live. And just seeing somebody have so much fun with it was like amazing. That's why I do a lot of like Elton John songs at gigs too, because watching people's faces light up, they like recognize it. And people just want to sing. I've learned that people like that go to live music, they want to sing too. So give them some songs they know. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think when it boils down to it, like, you can interpret music any way you want to, but I think there are two core things that will forever withstand, no matter whether it's a heavy metal band, an EDM DJ, a folk singer, whatever, anything. And there are two things that always stick through, and it's storytelling and it's human connection.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Those two things will, like, they're in kind of every sort of, I mean, more or less, like some are more like, you get in an acoustic realm, you get that storytelling a lot more than you would in something like an EDM kind of thing. But like, it's still that sort of like human connection. Like, it's a shared experience from artist to consumer, from consumer to consumer, from artist to artist, like any combination of it. It's just this huge medium of human connection.
Exactly. And, you know, not to be cliched, because I know everyone has said this, but I love that there's between like a hardcore like rock fan and, you know, somebody that's really into like indie folk music, as different as those genres are, like
Mhm.
I think it's so cool that those two fans at least have something in common, and that's love for music, especially live music. I just think that's like, it's so cliche, and everyone talks about music is the universal language. Everybody loves music, and that's how we communicate. And it's like, well, it's a cliche for a reason. It's true.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I love that it can connect people from like so many different walks of life.
no, for sure. It's I, you can't necessarily always put it to words, but it's just that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure
So
somebody else has said it way more eloquently than me, but
you know, we get the
someone's probably
point.
written a song about it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably a few.
Yeah. So I think that brings us to the final question that is kind of the premise for the whole podcast in itself. Why music?
I can't imagine doing anything else. That's a good question.